Hello and welcome to Place Mahmood podcast, and this show is for visionary and entrepreneur learners who are thirsty for actionable steps and advice to make the next big thing. On the show, we'll be discussing everything related to business and entrepreneurship to help you do what you want to do and get you where you want to be in the shortest possible time. I'm Mahmood, the host of the show. I'm a curious person just like you, and we'll be learning along with you from the great individual who made it and made it big. Now, I'll be sharing everything I already know and the new things I'll be learning with you all. So, without wasting any more time, let's get into today's episode. Welcome to the show, and our today's guest is Scott Ballard, and he's a founder of Confidence Coach LLC, and he's a coach, author, and he's the author of Biggest Disability is a Bad Attitude, and speaker who has helped his clients achieve the results they never needed while holding on to Scott's belief in them and their business. He's a natural coach full of encouragement and accountability and questions to transform your business and has life experience. And I'm very pleased to have him here on the show. So the first thing I'm going to ask you is, so how did everything get started for you?
Yeah, well, thank you, first of all, for having me. And I love the question. It started for me when I was 7 years old. So 55 years ago, in the States, at 7 years of age, you go to primary school or the initial schooling. And I was very excited about that because all my friends would be at school and I could learn and do all those things. But when I got to school, after a couple of months, I realized that I wasn't learning like the other kids. And then my teacher came to my home and spoke to my parents and said, he's not learning the way everybody else is. And she was very frustrated with me. But what she didn't realize is that I was dyslexic. And back in that time, teachers didn't have training of how to teach a child that had dyslexia. So she just sat me in the corner and said, "You're stupid and you'll never be anything or do anything in your life." And so that's where confidence all started for me, not in myself because I felt very bad about myself, but I could see the confidence and I could see the gifts and the abilities in my fellow students very clearly, but I couldn't see it myself. So my study, my work of confidence actually began at that time when I was feeling the worst about my own confidence. But as I turned my focus on other people and I watched other kids and other teachers, I could see their confidence. I could see their ability. And so that's where it all started, clear back then. And so I've been doing this my whole life since the first day of school, basically.
Interesting. So most of the time, I'm going to want to say one interesting fact here. So 2/3 of the most successful people are dyslexic.
Yes.
So tell me how can this ability turn into a superpower? So let's say in your bio, there's one line that struck me was that this power, this disability by according to people became your superpower. Tell me more about it.
Yeah. So what it allowed me to do or to know and to learn of its strength is I see things and process things in a way that is very conducive to starting, scaling, and building a business. So when I see a problem, what I actually see is an opportunity to solve that problem. And my mind is able to take all kinds of information and assimilate it into a solution for the customer or whoever is needing that problem solved. And I do that thinking, but I don't think that I am the only one that's going to have that solution and put together, I put the genius of other people together in order to build the solution. So by my gift of seeing the genius in other people, I'm able to build a team that builds a solution that delivers a product or a service to a client that is what they want, right? So as a dyslexic, I think outside the box. I don't think in the way that education teaches. I look for a solution outside that narrow path. I look for a solution that is fundamentally different than what is being done now. Okay. And my mind thinks that way because I work out of the right side of my mind. I don't work out of the left side of my mind. And so the right side is the creative side. It's the side that connects dots where people don't see connection. I see connection. And so I look for solutions and breakthroughs, and my mind is so powerful that way. But it's also super powerful because I don't have the ability to do things in the way that education does them. 2 + 2 is 4, right? Well, not in my mind. 2 + 2 could be 7, right? And I can make a case for that. But that doesn't work in the education system. And that's why dyslexics don't do well in education. But when they get into the business world, they do exceedingly well. Because we're looking for unique breakthroughs and transformations and solutions in a way that is outside the bounds of the educational world.
Okay. So I've got 2 questions here. So one is, tell me, many people are not clear about the concept, the thing about being dyslexic. So tell me more about that. So what's actually how does it feels like when you're doing things, or let's say interacting with other people? And the second thing is, how does that work, that 2 + 2 = 7? 1 + 1 = 7. So tell me that.
Yeah. So the first question is, what does it feel like to be a dyslexic? Is that what you're saying?
Yes.
Yeah. So being a dyslexic is all I've ever known. So I have to go, okay, what does it feel like not to be a dyslexic, right? Because that's all I've ever known. My father was dyslexic. His father was dyslexic. My daughter is dyslexic. So in one sense, what it feels like to me is normal. But in the sense of what you're saying is that for me, here's a challenge that I had for many years. I would read something, and you have your questions up here, and I would read it, and I would not be able to comprehend what I've read, because between my eyes and my brain, there was a disconnection or disruption. So I would read that, and I would have to read that over and over before I could comprehend it. But if I listened to you and you said to me the question, I immediately comprehended it and could answer the question. But I was not wired the same way as you to read it and comprehend it and produce an answer. So that's one of the ways that dyslexia really affected me. The other way is I would become very disoriented if I had to read and write for any period of time, because I was not able to use the left side of my brain. So I become very fatigued or frustrated or have stress and anxiety about that. So I would do everything verbally. I found other ways to do that because then I could use the right side, the creative side of my brain, which is my superpower. Okay. And so that's what it feels like to be a dyslexic. It's very disorienting. And we have to realize the whole world, particularly the educational world, is all left brain. So to be a dyslexic is like to walk into a classroom and know that it's going to be 300% harder for you to do the minimum work in school, for an example, or to sit down and read a book from cover to cover, which may take one person a week to do, would have at that point taken me a year to do. So all of those things are 10 times harder. Okay. So that's what it feels like to be a dyslexic. And the thing about being dyslexic is you can't look at me and say I'm dyslexic. Okay.
I agree.
Because it's inside. So you can look at me and say, oh, you're an American. Okay. You can tell that. But you can't do that with dyslexics. And 1 in 5 people in the world have some form of dyslexia. 1 in 5. So there's almost 2 billion people that have some form of dyslexia. And then you pointed out earlier, and we make up a large portion, 30, 40, 50% of successful entrepreneurs have some form of dyslexia. So is it a disability or is it a superpower? I would say to you, it is the superpower of being an entrepreneur.
Okay. Interesting. So how did this ability affected your communication with others? So let's say I'm going to ask, let's say 3 people. Mm-hmm. 1, your teachers, second, your friends, and 3, the strangers. So,
okay. So with my teachers, it did not help the communication at all because they were only teaching in the left brain. They could only teach in one way. Well, that doesn't work for most dyslexics. So my communication with my teachers was not positive because they had labeled me as stupid and dumb and that I would be nothing. So my communication with them was not good. My communication with my friends was exceptional because I was constantly talking about their gifts, their abilities that I saw in them. I'm like, man, you're so good at math. You're so good at this. You're so good at cricket. I was constantly seeing their greatness because I couldn't see my own, because I had believed my teacher the lie that I would never be able to do anything. I would never write a book. Well, that's not true. I've written a book. I mean, so the third is the stranger. So when I meet a stranger, I am able to discern very quickly what their superpower is. Just through my ability of focusing on other people, because I, for a long time, didn't believe I had anything to offer, but I could see that in them, and I would tell them that, and I would talk to them about that and build them up. So that's the 3 conversations.
Interesting. So how does, in terms of strangers, I want to know more about the strangers. So let's say you're meeting a person on the street, or let's say we are talking. So how can you understand my ability, like while we are talking?
Yeah, it's really simple. What is it that fascinates you and keeps you curious, and you do, and it doesn't feel like work, and you do it, and other people say, wow, I can't believe how good you are at that, or how easy that is for you, because that's really hard for me. It's super simple. It's just that. That's when we know in our genius, like what we're doing right now is a genius for me. I do interviews, podcasts, I do speaking, I do all this. People say, well, aren't you nervous? Aren't you afraid? Aren't you worried about, he's going to ask you a question, you're not going to know the answer? No, because I'm a genius at this. In fact, I don't even need to know the questions because I already know the answer. That's when you're in your superpower, your genius zone, or what I call your God-given ability, when it's that easy. This is not hard for me. There's people on interviews where they dread it and they get off it and they struggle and they have all these negative thoughts. I'm energized by this. Okay, this is the easiest thing in the world for me to do. And I don't care where you go with the questions. In fact, I don't even need to know the questions because I already know the answer.
Okay.
That's confidence. That's ultimate confidence, right? Because you're halfway around the world. You could say anything to me. I'm not worried about that.
Okay. I agree with it. Okay. The next thing is, so when did you actually realize that you had this superpower? Like, when did you realize that this disability, which was labeled by your teachers and the society or the education system, let's say, is a superpower? When did this happen?
Yeah. So ironically, it happened in my 6th year of primary school. I went to my 6th year primary school, and the first day of school, we had a brand new teacher that it was his first year of teaching. And when we came into the class, he said, take all the desks out of the class and put them outside. And I was like, oh my gosh, what is he doing? Because it's already hard enough. And now he's removing, my desk and the place to work and all of that. And what he proceeded to say was, I'm going to teach you not out of a book, but I'm going to teach you about real life. And I'm going to turn the whole class into a business. So what he did was he gave everybody a business to start with. So here's an idea. At recess, if you wanted a ball so you could play Foursquare, or you could play a game with, you had to rent the ball from the person that owned the rental business for recess activities. If you needed a copy of a paper, then you had to pay the person that copied your paper, different things. So he turned the whole classroom into a business to teach us about math and history and the stock market and all these things. Well, I was terrified of that. But what happened was we all started with one business and an equivalent of like $50 in the US. And what happened was that I began to see in my mind, because I have a right brain, creative mind, opportunities to grow my business. So I bought the copy business from the girl in my class that didn't want to do it anymore. And by the end of the class, I owned pretty much every business, and I had all the money of our classroom at the end of the school year. And what I had figured out was that my genius really applied not in education, but in the creative problem solving of business, which is the superpower of being dyslexic. So it started in 6th grade, and my teacher actually made me aware of it. And at the end of the year, I won an award. Even though I was a bad student in the academic, I was the best student when it came to business and real life. Isn't that amazing? So my teacher was Mr. Bacala, and it was his first year of teaching, and it was phenomenal experience. I'm always grateful, and I always tell people he had such a positive impact on my life.
That's an amazing story. Okay, so like your teacher helped you to understand it. So in your experience, usually, who are the people that suffer from the lack of confidence the most?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Well, I think it's everybody. We all have times and we all have situations where we're not confident, right? So if you were, if we were meeting and you were saying, okay, you have to handwrite or type on a computer 1,000-page book, and it needs to be to me next week, that would be not great confidence for me, because I would be out of my zone of genius, right? So I would immediately think in my mind, what's a better way to do that? And the better way to do that is my app, which is called Otter, which is a voice recording app where I would actually speak the book out. And I do this all the time. And I would actually write the book with my voice on AI in transcription. I wouldn't even think about it. I don't even type, and you can't read my writing because it's like scribble. So I already thought of a way around that. But to say, when do people struggle with confidence? They struggle when they get outside their zone of genius. And people are told all the time they need to operate there, but that's not true. They need to find a way to get that done, but that doesn't mean they have to do it or do it in the way that people say. And this gets back to the genius of being dyslexic, because we're always looking for a way around the traditional way of doing something, which is actually problem solving at the highest level. The person that solves the biggest problem in the world is rewarded the most in their business, in their entrepreneur adventure, right? That really what businesses do is they solve problems for their customers, right? So a dyslexic has been solving problems for themselves since their first memory, because we live in a world that does not work for us. So we've had to solve it to navigate it to move ahead in the world.
Okay, understandable. But I've got one interesting question here. So how can a person, let's say you said the question that you said one question to ask by the other person. Let's say a person is alone and doesn't have anyone around him, and he is quite like he lacks confidence basically.
Mm-hmm.
So how can he understand his superpower?
Yeah. So the first question though is when did he start lacking confidence? So we have to go back to what's the lie that he believed that somebody told him. That in my case, somebody in first grade, my teacher said I was stupid, I was dumb, and I would never be anything. And I believed that because I respected her as a teacher, but it was a lie. It wasn't true. The truth was I had a hidden genius inside of me. So the first thing that I would do with a stranger would be like, okay, what is the lie you're believing that you can't be something, do something, learn something? When did that start? When did you start believing that? Did your parents tell you that? Did your boss tell you that? Did your teacher tell you that? Did the culture, did social media tell you that? Because until we uncover the lie, we can't replace it or reprogram it with the truth. And the truth is you have all kinds of ability, but you're stuck believing the lie. So you can't tap into the confidence of the things you can do that are great, because everybody has an amazing ability. It's just been overshadowed by all the lies they believed about, I'm not tall enough, I'm not smart enough, I'm the wrong color, I'm a man, I'm not a woman. All those things are lies. So we have to deal with the lie first and then find out, okay, what's the truth of that? And the truth is always the opposite of the lie. So that's where I'd start. If I met you and we were at an airport and we met and we're sitting down next to each other and we had that conversation, I would immediately say, okay, what's the lie you're believing? And you'd go, oh, I'm not believing any lie. And I go, well, why do you not believe you can do this meeting for this company, or do this presentation, or write this book, or do this interview with this important person? Well, there's somewhere back there where you started believing, hey, I'm not good enough.
True.
I can't is the identifier of what the lie is. When somebody says I can't, I immediately go, okay, when did you start believing that? Oh, well, my friend told me this, or somebody that I really respected said, I can't ever have a successful podcast. Oh, okay. So you chose to believe them, which is a lie, instead of believing that you can, and you do have the ability to figure it out and to be great at it. And that's what I do with people all day long.
Okay. So after understanding that truth, so what's the next step for them?
The next step, are you familiar with coding and programming?
Yes.
Okay. So the next step is simple as program. We have to debug the belief that they have about the lie. So we have to identify it, and then we have to reprogram. What is the truth? The truth is you're great at podcast interviewing. Okay, you have to replace that. So how do we replace that? We repeat that. We use, we use statements of affirmation. We write that down. We journal that. We inundate ourselves with the new truth is, I'm really good at this and I love to do it, and it's my superpower.
Okay, so like you said, a really interesting point here. Okay, so whenever, let's say someone, okay, this happens to me as well. So whenever I try to, let's say a positive affirmation,
Mm-hmm.
there is like many people call it an inner demon who tries to fight it. And let's say in my case, there are, let's say, two personalities where we're like which are fighting each other. It feels something like it, okay, all the time. So what about that person who has, let's say, for some reason maybe he has built a base of confidence in themselves, but because of external lies, they are like continuously conflicted with each other continuously. So what can he or she do in that case, in that place?
Okay, so there's two things, and that's a great question. AM, that is a fantastic question, because that happens all the time, right? First of all, so you have a lie here and you have a truth, a little person here, the one speaking the lie, one speaking the truth, right? That's what you're talking about. Everybody has that, right? So we have to starve the lie, meaning we cannot give it any attention, focus, or thought. Okay, so that's the first thing. So whenever that lie starts to speak and you hear it, you have to turn it off. Okay, but I got a better analogy for you. So you've been to a train station, right?
Yeah.
You've ridden on a train, right? Okay.
Yes.
So your mind is like a train station. There's trains of thoughts that come into your mind all the time, right? Different thoughts that come in. And this is like sitting in a train station and watching the trains come and go. What I tell people to do and what I coach them to do is, as that train comes in, where's that train of thought going to take you? Is it going to take you to the lie, or is it going to take you to the truth? And if it's going to take you to the lie, then you stay on the bench and you let that train leave your mind, because that's not where you want to go. But if it's the truth and it's going to take you to your superpower, to those things of confidence, then you want to get on that train and take that train of thought and follow it. So it's a mental picture. We're in a busy train station, right? There's trains coming and going all the time, and I love that. And I have to stop and go, is that train actually going to take me to a lie, or is that train going to take me to the truth? And I only get on trains that take me to the truth. And if I do that consistently, I train my mind, my thinking, to only get on thoughts and only get on the train of thoughts that are going to take me to the truth of who I am and what my confidence and superpower is. I'll no longer get on the lie train. So you stop it there. I don't get on any train of thought until I've sat on the bench and I go, where are the destinations of those trains, of that train? Is it the truth? Is it confidence? Is it my superpower? Or is it doubt, fear, frustration, anxiety, worry? There's only two trains of thought in your mind. There's only two. So that's how we deal with it.
Okay, that's an interesting idea of imagining it, I'd say, because that if we see any negative or positive idea that comes to our minds, if we think it's a flowing idea, if it comes, we can let it go. If it's a good idea, we can ride with it. Okay, my question to you is, so it's actually my imagination, or like my thing that I just imagine right now is, I think when we are very young, like before we talk with other people, like talk with the people who has negative ideas, or like not positive idea, not negative, but not positive idea for us. Till that time, we build confidence, and that's how the base of any confident person, like any person, that positive angel or like that positive self that we talked about grows. And after that, when we interact with other people, that other demon side of thing, or that I said, like demon, or like the inner demon, or any negative thoughts come in, or like the negative ideas or negative trains come in. So what's your take on it? So how does this conflict of thoughts come to a person? Let's say, when does that good side of person, like the good idea, builds up, and when does that bad idea builds up?
When does it start? Is that what you're saying?
When does it build, I'd say. So till when does it build, and how?
Yeah, it is building from the very beginning of your thought life. So from your first memory. So I often ask, and I've got it on my board right here, I often ask clients, what did you love to do most when you were 6 years old?
I don't remember.
No, but whatever the first memory is, that's when you started identifying or recognizing that your thoughts are either a lie or truth. Okay? So, but the bigger answer to your question is, can you do anything about your thoughts? Yes. But you have to be intentional, and you have to choose that every moment, all the time. And that's a practice. That's a habit. It's like a muscle. So if I was lifting weights and I went the first day of lifting weights and not lifted weights for 10 years, and I tried to lift up 500 pounds, what would happen?
You didn't lift.
I wouldn't even be able to budget. But if I was lifting weights every day for 10 years, I might be able to lift up 500 pounds. But it's the habit, the discipline of that decides whether or not what thoughts rule. Is it the lie, or is it the truth that's ruling your life? But that is in the moment. Right now, you're choosing whether to believe the lie about yourself or the truth. So the longer you believe the truth, the more confident you are in a healthy way.
Okay.
So you're never done. You're always working on it.
Okay. So let's say someone, like, how can a person be intentional with it? The question is this. So let's say a negative thought or positive thought is coming in. So what's that, like, in that moment, what should he say to himself? Should he say,
Stop with that thought, sit on the bench in the train station to decide whether or not you're going to get on the lie train or wait for the truth train?
okay, got it.
The hardest thing to do for us humans is to stop and actually go, okay, is that thought going to take me to the right place or the wrong place? Because eventually, if you don't get on the lie train, eventually the truth train will come through. And you go, oh, that's going to take me where I want to go. I'm going to get on that train.
Okay, interesting. To sum it up, there will be these steps. So first, for anyone who lacks a confidence, the first thing that they should do is identify what they love the most. Sorry. First, they understand what lie they're believing in, then they reprogram it. And also during that time, they should ask what is the thing that they love the most doing, and they're great at doing that, other people say.
Or a better way to say it is, what do I do that I do really well, that other people really appreciate, and it's easy for me and it's hard for everybody else?
Okay, yes, that's the perfect line. And then on a regular basis, practice sitting stopping at a place and deciding which train to ride, the positive train or the negative train. So that sums up all the things about gaining confidence and letting go of negative thoughts. Now, so we covered that topic. Now, what advice would you actually give to your younger self? Let's say you're a fifth grader. Okay, you're in fifth grade. You haven't experienced your sixth grade yet. So, what advice would you give to yourself?
The advice I would give to myself was be very careful about believing what people say about you if it's a lie. So you have to be very careful of taking on beliefs or thoughts from another person if it isn't building you up, if it isn't encouraging you, if it isn't building my confidence. I have to be very careful to make sure that their motives really are aligned with what's best for my confidence.
Awesome. So, after you realize, so what would be your next advice to your seventh grade self? Like, let's say you have experienced that.
Yeah.
That thing. So what would be your advice to your seventh grade self?
Well, here was the advice. I knew now that I had a God-given ability in business because I was dyslexic, not because I wasn't, or that I was stupid. It was because that I had an unfair advantage in the real world. Once I got done with education, I started a business. I had an unfair advantage over all people that had all kinds of degrees and PhDs and masters because my mind thought like an entrepreneur. And you can't learn that. I was born with it. Like I was born with this genius in this area. So that was my thinking. I just wanted to get out of school so I could start doing business. And that's what I did.
Okay, but by the way, should you wait for? I don't think waiting to get out of the school would be the best thing to do it there. So starting a small business during that time you're in school, that would like the best thing I would say, right?
Oh, absolutely, yeah. And I started small businesses my whole childhood, and I didn't even know that it was my genius. I did it all the time.
Okay, so I'll do that thing again on myself. Okay, so there is one question that I always ask on all the episodes is, what is education and learning to you?
Knowing myself and knowing what it is that my God-given ability is, and then putting it to work in the world, serving people around the globe. So if I can help somebody go from believing the lie to believing the truth, and then going out and serving the world to do that, that is education to me. Education is bringing insight and breakthroughs and miracles and transformations to people that are ready to do that work, to be the best version of themselves tomorrow. That's what I think education is. And it never ends. I'm learning more now than I did yesterday.
True. Okay. So the next thing I'm going to ask is, okay, this is like the same question, but a very connected question. So tell us about the book, The Biggest Disability is a Bad Attitude. Second, how did you write it?
Yeah.
The process.
So, the book, The Biggest Disability is a Bad Attitude, is actually my life story of how I turned what everybody said was a disability into my greatest advantage. So it's the documentation from my childhood, 7 years of age, my history, my story up till 5 years ago. Okay. So it's just telling people the journey I went on, the story of it. Okay. So how did I write the book? I didn't write a word of the book. I spoke the book into existence. Yeah. And the testimonies and the stories and what it's done for people has been worth saying the book, going through that whole thing. So Yeah, I had a great editor, I had a great publisher, but I actually spoke the book into a recorder and did it chapter by chapter. And it was not difficult at all because it's real, my real story, my real journey from, thinking about suicide when I was 7 years of age to having all kinds of success.
Okay. So was it so bad that you thought about suicide at the 7?
Oh, absolutely. I came very close to doing it.
Yeah,
because I believed the lie. I believed that I was junk and I wasn't worth anything.
Okay. This is the second last thing I'm going to ask you. So to your 7-year-old self who is thinking, not 7, but the person who is thinking he's a junk, what should he do now? What would you say to him now?
Well, it's a lie because everybody has unbelievable value and contribution, and everybody has something that they bring to the world that is unique to them. There's 8 billion people on the planet right now. Everybody is uniquely gifted and different and valuable. That's what I say to that person. There's great value in you. We just have to uncover it.
Okay.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
It's hope. There's no mistake. You're there. You have a genius. You have something that can serve the people of the world.
Okay. And that's an awesome advice, especially during us, like, let's say a person who is actually, he feels he's a junk. This is a great advice for him, because these small words of affirmation, that's what keeps him going. He needs it. And so we are almost at the end. So where can our listeners find you online?
Yeah, I'm at confidencecoach.org, O-R-G, confidencecoach.org. We have all kinds of information there. We have, there's all kinds of content. And we also we offer an unlimited number of free consultations to people that are serious about, building their business, scaling their business, getting their confidence so they can take the next step with their business and their work.
Awesome. So that's all for today. And thanks for the listener for coming on the show and listening to the show. And thank you for hopping on the show. Have a great day. And thanks for the listeners. And thank you for joining. Signing off. This was the end of today's episode, and I know that it's quite hard to take the steps that you need to take, but I hope that we were able to share some steps that you can take right away to motivate yourself to take a leap of faith and pursue what you want to be or want to do. And if you have any question, then message me on Instagram at Abdullah M. Mahmood. It is spelled as ABDULLAHMMAHMUD. Again, the spelling is ABDULLAHMMAHMUD. This is my social media handle for all social medias: LinkedIn, Instagram, Facebook, Twitter, and TikTok as well. I don't have any videos on TikTok anyway, but you can find me there. You can follow me or send a message. I'll love to talk with you. And finally, you can also message me through Anchor, the voice message option of Anchor. And lastly, if you want to grow with me and learn actionable steps twice a week, or want to make this podcast be the #1 podcast for visionaries, then make sure to hit the subscribe button. And if you are on Apple Podcasts, then make sure to leave a review. It really helps to bring on amazing guests just like today. And that's for today. Until next time, keep being your best self. Bye.